Okay, well, good day, everyone, and welcome back to our Zoe Quarterly Update webinar series. We did skip Q1 of this calendar year due to the focus on Zoe V2 and what turned out to be 13 weeks of office hours that we presented between January and April to help prepare both our Zoe consumers and our Zoe extenders for Zoe V2. If you missed that series, you can definitely catch the replays at zoe.org/vnext. Before we officially begin, I just want to mention a couple of housekeeping items. All attendee microphones are muted, and the panelists obviously are not, and we have our cameras on this time. This webinar will be recorded for replay and will be available typically by the end of the week. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and use the chat and or the Q&A throughout the webinar. And then I'll introduce myself. I'm Rose Sakach, the Zoe Onboarding Squad Lead and the current Zoe Advisory Council Chairperson. I will be kicking us off and wrapping this up, but I will be joined by ZAC member Bruce Armstrong and Doc Squad Lead Ashley Lee. And as you can see, we have two very special guests, Zoe consumers for our Zoe Roundtable. All right, so here is our plan. We will briefly review the goals of this webinar. We haven't done a quarterly update in a while. I just want to remind everybody what that is. We'll go right into what we're calling our Zoe Lightning Roundtable with our guests. We'll do a Zoe V2 documentation tour, and then we'll wrap it up with events and sharing various highlights that may be new to you and some general information on how to be in touch with the Zoe community and how to stay tuned in. We typically do not have time remaining for Q&A, so I do want to encourage you all to please enter questions as we go along. So just very quickly, our intent for this webinar series is to offer a forum for open exchange for all of you, an exchange of information and ideas. And the goal in general is to give both the members of the community and those beyond the community insights, mostly in the form of highlights into what's happening with the Zoe project, and also give you all an opportunity to offer suggestions and to make sure that you understand how to stay connected with what's going on and with all of us. And we're trying to hold them, as I said, quarterly. We skipped the first quarter. We're going to reconvene on that quarterly cadence. And certainly you can find the replays available if you're interested in any of the prior. And then before diving into our focus topic, I just wanted to make sure all of you are aware of two big events that have happened since our last update. First, Zoe is a winner, and that's awesome, right? Zoe won the Category 10 Best DevOps for Mainframe Solution in the DevOps.com 2021 Annual DevOps Dozen Award. Also, Zoe V2 LTS went GA. We announced that back on April 27th, and the Zoe community celebrated both with a real and virtual cake ceremony. All right, so let's get right into our focus topic. We have real Zoe users talking about Zoe. We have, as I said, we have a short roundtable planned, and this is going to be our focus topic for the month. And we sort of been trying to do this. We felt it would be really interesting to ask actual Zoe users a few simple questions about Zoe and share that with all of you. So before we get into the questions, I want to quickly welcome our guests, Bruno and Emlyn. Would you both take an opportunity to briefly introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Bruno Laurent. I'm work on IT, especially on mainframe since 1998. And on my company, I'm a junior endeavor since 2020. Last year, we started to work on the mainframe modernization, and I really appreciate because I can mix the open world and with the new technology and the mainframe world, if I can speak like that.
Excellent. Emlyn.
And my name is Emlyn Williams. I work in Scotland for NatWest Bank. I'm an Endeavour administrator as well, and it seems like a good way to get into Zowe and all the parts of it.
Fantastic. So let's just get right into our questions. Bruce, kick us off. You need to come off mute. There you go.
Okay, thankfully the background noise that I had has disappeared. So for those of you attending the webinar or those listening to the recording, you know, we in the Zowe community track very closely, I'll say, a set of metrics about how people are using Zowe. And as Rose says, it's great to have, you know, live consumers of the technology to talk with us. We often track downloads. We're looking at GitHub issues. You know, we're looking for, you know, feedback from the community. So what we'll do today is just ask some open-ended questions and you know, get the feedback for how it's gone for Bruno and Emlyn. So Bruno, I'll direct this first question to you, and then Emlyn, but when did you first become interested in Zowe? How'd you find out about it? We're very curious because, you know, we want to spread the word, and how you learned of it and started using the technology would be great for us to hear.
Okay, so the first time I heard about Zowe, the name, that was during the Vitality training in 2020, and I started to work with last year with the version V1. And this year we implemented the V2 to be sure we can give the best experience to our developers.
Great. Emlyn, how about you?
Must have been over 2 years ago now. I'm not sure how long Zoe's been around, but certainly from a Zowe CLI perspective, that's when I started looking at it. We have the Endeavour web service up and running and have for a long time. And obviously the API calls can be quite complex to code. So Zowe CLI was a great addition to our portfolio to help us code more quickly and efficiently.
Great.
I think we're also looking at the Zowe, what's it called? The Zowe Explorer for VS Code.
Yes.
We're quite heavily involved with Eclipse, but I can certainly see why developers would also want the option of using VS Code.
So go ahead.
And finally, we also have the host component for Zowe installed, and that was for the DB2 DevOps experience. When I don't know much about that, not being a DBA myself, and we're not using the mediation layer on the host.
Okay, great to hear. So there's a couple of things in your response. So you asked how old Zowe is. It's kind of, time flies, right? We initially declared the open source community back in August of 2018, and at the time, not all of the code was 100% open source. So while we declared, I'll say, our intent in August of 2018, it wasn't until early 2019 that we kind of declared, I'll say, the birthday of Zowe. So it's actually been around a lot longer than some people realize. You know, you mentioned the VS Code extension and DB2 DevOps. Hopefully, those of you that are listening understand that Zowe is not just one thing. It's actually 4 integrated components. There's the command line interface, there is a VS Code extension, and then what we call the Zowe app framework. And as Emlyn mentions, you know, different product teams have adopted different technologies. So in the case of Endeavour, there's a CLI plugin for interaction. And in the case of DB2 DevOps, they make use of this web browser technology that we call the app framework. So anyway, I think it's kind of fun and interesting that you can kind of use Zowe as you see fit, and use the different components. We also heard mention of the API mediation layer. That's technically an optional component, but we're finding more and more reasons to use it for the integration of these components and for security reasons. So Emlyn, I'm guessing if you haven't used it yet, there will be a reason in the future to use it. So anyway, great feedback. Rose, do you want to take the second question?
Yeah, sure. Just before we move on, is it safe to say that you were both driven to Zowe by the command line interface, or is that not accurate? Would you say that was your entry point into Zowe?
Entry point, yes. CLI.
Okay.
The same.
Excellent.
Yeah, and because I guess from our view, that is a very easy way to get started. You're installing code on your laptop or desktop, and you're making use of REST APIs that are very likely already in place or relatively easy to get established. So
Exactly. And that leads very nicely into question 2, right? Which components are you most focused on? You were led to Zowe by the command line interface. Does that necessarily mean that you are focused on the command line interface? I know, Emlyn, you had sort of already responded to that and said you're experimenting with, I think, the Zowe Explorer for Visual Studio Code. Are there other parts of Zowe? Any interest in the desktop at this point?
Again, we have the desktop installed, but not a lot of use for it. So our main focus is definitely VS Code and CLI.
Okay. And the VS Code use, the Explorer for VS Code, is this something that is being shared with various parts of the organization, or would you say it's more targeted towards the folks that you have direct interaction with, more of a supporting staff versus a development staff?
It's mainly supporting staff at the moment.
Okay.
And certainly for people who are using USS, so Unix on the mainframe, where files are more than 80 characters wide, and job output can be quite wide and lengthy too. I find it very handy for those particular types.
Got it. Bruno, how about with you in your organization? Are you primarily focused on the CLI?
Yeah, that's the same. That's the same with Visual Studio Code 2. And for the moment, we use Zowe regularly. The plugin we use the most, that's Zowe Endeavor to extract lists, to check where the components or the programs execute ACM query to analyze the impact via the cross-reference. We can compile the program, the couple compile with it too. We use Zowe Endeavor bricks for Git to manage branches, and Zowe FTP to extract from PDS the copybooks managed outside Endeavor, because we have some. And at least we tested plugin for DB2 to extract data, and look where the record directive on the VDI.
Bruno, you were one that meant you mentioned Zowe V2. I'm interested what you've done with that, what your experience was with V2.
For me, that's with the V2. I realized that to manage the profiles, that's different, because now you have the credential and you can use. I was surprised with the first time I used the version V1 we can see the for example, the password. And now the security, with the security, the credentials are more secure. And for us, that's very important. And that's really great.
Yeah, I guess because a lot of people were concerned about the way we initially handled the passwords. I guess at the very early stages of CLI, it was stored to where if you were knowledgeable about where to look for it, you could find it. I'll say quickly adopted using a secure credential store, but it was technically considered an optional install in V1, and we've made improvements with that over time. But you're exactly right. For version 2, it's no longer an option. So we wanted to be sure that people that started with V2, we could say that it was stored locally and encrypted without any optional actions needing to be taken. So we view that as a good step forward, but I also want to be sure people who are using V1, we have security there. You just need to take a couple extra steps. So, but
Yeah, I think the phrase Bruce is secure by default, right?
yes, exactly.
That's what we like. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next.
Yeah,
Over to you, Bruce.
so I'm happy to take this one. I guess what have been your challenges? And again, keep in mind for people on the webinar and listening, if you want to say that there were no challenges, that's great to hear. But we recognize that this is relatively new, right? To have open source connecting the way it does to a ZOS environment. Those challenges might have just been with installer config. It might have been getting permission to use open source. I mean, we're, I guess, wanting to hear your challenges and then maybe how you address those challenges that other people might learn from. So Bruno, I'll start with you first.
Okay, so our vision is to use Zowe the most we can to automate processes. But as you know, change process and habits for developer doesn't come on one day. I hope that the majority of developers on my company will use Zowe. For the moment, the movement is ongoing, and we have already good feedback with Visual Studio Code and plugins like Cobol or Cobol Control Flow, because that give a good view for the better view for the code to a developer, and for us that's a good start. And if we can say this.
So I'm just curious, when you talk about rollout, or I mean, I'm sure you have change control procedures and such. I mean, what has been the attitude of Zowe, right? Do they see the value right away? Do you have to teach classes or something? I'm just curious.
Yeah, for the moment, that's totally new for them. And sometimes they manage, they don't know if they prefer the 72 emulator or to stay. Yeah, because the majority of the people are old, okay, on my company, so are not young. And yeah, to go on this new technology, sometimes that's not very easy. But as the movement is ongoing, and to attract young people, for us that's very important to have this technology. And but I'm pretty sure that we will find a good opportunity, and the value we will that will add the good value for our job.
Yeah, I just a comment on that I think I speak for the Zowe community when I said our first kind of target was what I call the next gen IT staff, right? They were the people that grew up knowing about web and CLI and VS Code. And we have been pleasantly surprised that many senior people have adopted the technology as well. And it's also, I think, been key when you have a senior person that may be mentoring or working with a new person, that they can share the same tooling to be able to get things done. So it'll be interesting if we talk to you a year from now to see if you've seen some of these same trends. Emlyn, how about you about challenges?
Oh, it's been one long challenge.
Well, what lessons can you share?
Well, I'd like to start off with something good. Installing the host component on the mainframe was pretty straightforward. It's mainframe, right? It's going to be easy.
I love it.
So that was great. But we do have other issues. I'll start with our orchestrators, which are obviously on servers. They're on Linux servers. So I tried to get Zowe CLI installed on our Team City servers. We got a flat no there. No take up, they wouldn't do it. We're going to be moving to another tool. So I decided not to fight that one because I'm sure I can get it as an early adopter on the new tool. We also have Jenkins servers, and that we have more control over because Jenkins is exclusively for mainframe. So the team that looks after Jenkins reports into us, but they've been very slow on the take up. So initially, all our pipelines are using the raw API calls, which are difficult to code and debug and read. But when I did get them to install Zowe CLI, it was great. They said, well, wow, why haven't we always been doing that? Because it's so much easier. They were absolutely flabbergasted at how easy a Zowe CLI call was. But even then, we haven't got Zowe CLI on our production Jenkins server. And we've been working with pipelines for well over a year now, maybe 2 years. So speed on take up on platforms that I have no control of is a major challenge. And then
we've heard that. We've heard that, right, Bruce? This isn't a traditional job, a characteristic of a systems programming or administrator's job. And therefore, logistically within organizations, assigning the work has tended to be one of the challenges, right? Assigning the work to the right people.
And when you did get a no, Emlyn, I'm just curious, was it because it was open or they didn't know what to do with new technology like this? I mean, or was it just... They
didn't want to install new software on their servers.
Okay.
They have a server that's functioning, doesn't have any issues. I guess they're just scared of introducing problems to their servers.
Okay.
Not to mention the amount of work, the change records, the enhanced access, everything else that they have to go through to do it. It's not a small task.
Okay. But it sounds like you're making progress.
Yes, that is. Well, we're making progress everywhere. I was going to say that was just on the server side of it, but we've had a lot of challenges on desktops as well. So our desktops are virtual and they are heavily locked down. There's very little our average user can do. They certainly can't install software. But we have a packaging process where we can package software like Zowe CLI and VS Code, and the users can just install those packages from our self-service. But we couldn't get the secure credential store to work. It just wouldn't work on our desktops, even on mine, and I do have access to be able to install software. And the guys at Zowe.org spent a lot of time with us trying to get it working, and we never got through. And then slowly, our virtual desktops changed, and so did Zowe CLI, and now it works. Okay. I'm not sure what's been updated to make it work, but it does. So I can continue with the packaging process.
Okay.
But the pain
great.
didn't stop there.
Okay.
So as anybody that uses Zowe CLI knows, your C drive is the default place where your profiles and the extensions, the plugins go. But our developers don't have access to the C drive. Well, there's a solution. You can use a variable called Zowe CLI home, and you can set that to your network drive, to your home drive. Great, but new problem, runs very slowly from there. So a Zowe command would take between 20 and 30 seconds to respond. So we couldn't roll that out. But again, the Zowe org guys are very resourceful and have a solution for that, which is the Zowe daemon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a but coming, but that daemon won't start on our desktops. We can't run executables. You have to get packaged. So, it's something we can get through. But then we hit another issue where the daemon was slow to start, and our desktops are so slow that Zowe CLI gave up by the time the daemon actually started. So again, the Zowe org guys had to come up with some solution for us to allow for a very slow daemon to start. I think we're there now. It's been a long, long process. It's been well over a year. I think I started maybe early last year or maybe the year before, and we're still not there. So I'm close to having it packaged and available. I think I have today just worked through the last of the issues. We'll see.
Okay, so the takeaway, I guess, is both, I'll say, good news and bad news, right? That, very locked down systems, especially with network drives, there's some considerations. I guess I would like to kind of say that there's a silver lining here in that, reaching out to the open community, we do try to be responsive. I always like to make the point, especially for enterprise customers, almost everybody involved in Zowe has an enterprise, mindset, and we understand that systems are unique, security is important or whatever. So it's not like you're talking to, I'll say, a set of developers that don't understand your environment. And therefore we do try to be responsive. So to me, this is great lessons learned, right? And we need to kind of capture these, and for those who follow in your footsteps, maybe it'll be less painful for them as we implement what we've learned for you.
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And would you say, Emlyn, that Zowe V2 played a major role in getting beyond some of these challenges? It sounds like it. I mean, you made reference to daemon. You made, I think Bruno made reference to profile management. I think both of you had been involved in early access to the Zowe CLI squad's, new V2 technology before it was officially GA.
Yeah, we did. And certainly something changed in the secure credential store to make it work. It could have been V2, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the another issue that, if I can say issue, but to install DB2, that was not very easy, because I understood that I was obliged to install the NPM 64 bits and not GS, sorry, not GS 64 bits, and I realized it's after and many tests, and I opened a case with a vendor, and we solved the solution, and we find it the solution, and we solve it. But yes, that's an important point that to know.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And of course, you've asked for greatest challenge, but and I suppose I should have stuck with the greatest, but I'm a mainframer, I'm an Endeavour administrator. What do I know about packaging applications for Windows desktops? So there's a lot of learning for me.
Yeah,
it's been good. It's been interesting. I'll give you that.
Yeah, that's the same for me. Yeah, we learn many many languages like JavaScript, Python, and I study HTML too to because I have many ideas to implement, and that's definitely that changed my my world, and but I love it.
I was going to say maybe there's a hidden message there that it gives you some career growth and new things to learn as well, which hopefully you enjoy.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And I do think the Zowe open community in general is a great blend of young people, senior people with different skill sets. I talk about Zowe being a movement, meaning it is a great bunch of people to work with to sort these out. And when we can involve your experiences as well, it makes it even better. So.
Absolutely. Hey, before we close, just sort of to follow up on the tail end of this question, it sounds like, I don't want to make assumptions, but it sounds like despite the challenges, you're both in a position to move forward and help to have Zowe become part of either your daily processes or your production processes, or a process where you had originally intended to use it for. Is that true? And would you say that you have your management support in doing so?
Yeah, we're nearly
definitely.
there.
Okay.
Definitely, for me, that's important to that's an open source, and there is a different link with different APIs, and to improve and to see for the future, that's a really good job. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Great to hear.
Well, thank you both for participating in our lightning talk. It was fantastic to have you. And with that, we will continue on and turn it over to Ashley, who will give us a tour of the Zowe V2 dock.
Awesome.
Ashley?
Thank you, Rose. Let
You're
me share my
welcome.
screen now. I will give a live demo of the Zowe dock site. Okay, sharing my screen now. Cool, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, same screen as what has been shown on Rose's deck. So next, let's take a tour of the Zowe V2 documentation. And as all of you know, that Zowe doc site is actually the central location where you can find almost everything that you need to know in order to get started and be productive with Zowe. So you can explore this site and find a lot of great content, like how to set up and use the Zowe project, how to extend it to develop your own plugins or extensions, as well as how to contribute and debug. So this will be the right location if you have any confusions or the first first touch point in your journey if you want to get started with Zowe. So as you can see on my screen now, the layout of the site for V2 actually is the same with V1 docs. You can view high-level chapters at the top of the site, and then you can click each section and take a deeper dive into detailed step-by-step instructions by using this site navigation bar. And you can also expand it and also collapse it to have a better view of the doc site. And the latest version on this site now is Zowe. You can see here is 2.1 release. And if you want to switch to 2.0 documentation, you can simply use this version drop-down list and select the version which you want to use and read the corresponding content there. So I will simply stay on version 2.0 release here, as we have a really great, many great content here that I would like to show you. And what's more, you can also switch to dark mode. I know that many developers, you are familiar with VS Code and you like this mode, right, this theme. So we also stay in dark theme now and explore more content that V2 documentation provides here. And in the webinar today, let's look at some like some of the content that we have available to you to help you learn about V2 enhancements. And this might be particularly helpful if you are a V1 user, like Bruno and Emily, you started with V1 release, right? And in this case, if you are looking to start exploring and migrating to V2 release, this release notes section would be a good starting point. So as you can see here, we provide the release notes, which is a detailed list of all the changes that we introduced in V2 release. It will include like breaking changes, which might be helpful and useful for you to determine what kind of changes that will break your existing environment. And then we also introduce the new features and enhancements that we developed in V2 release, as well as the bugs that we fixed in the V1 release. And what's more, as you can see here, we also provide many more content to help our users and the community to quickly get started with the V2, those many enhancements and also improvements in V2 release. First of all is the V2 office hour videos, and then it's a release blog, which was written by Joe Winchester, who is a great technical leader in our community. And you can also read this blog to take a deeper dive into all the features where Joe is introducing in a very detailed manner what's changed in V2. And also you can see there are many GIF files, which would be very helpful for you to learn about each component and all the enhancements that were introduced to each component here. So this would be a good starting point as mentioned. And if you want to dive deeper into the changes for V2 release, V2 office hour videos would be the next step. So we also consolidated all of the like office hour series and converted that into some videos that have been published into the YouTube channel. And this topic, as you can see here, actually we'll walk you through all the office hour video content, a lot of great content there. And you can see here that we have like office hours for not only Zoe extenders, but also for Zoe consumers, and also provided links here. So this would be, if you want to like learn quickly and listen to the community experts talk about the V2 enhancements, this would be the good place to take a look. And now if you are ready to migrate from V1 to V2, and we also have a particular section named migrating from V1 to V2 to help you learn more about the migration path. Like if you are looking to migrate Zoe server components to V2, this would be the correct topic. And also similarly, it seems that Zoe CLI is really popular. So you can also take a look at this topic to start migrating. This would be the, like as mentioned, the first step that you can learn more about V2 release. And if you are now ready to install the Zoe V2 release, the setup section would be the place that you want to take a look. And especially we provide information based on the component that you focus on. So let me take like Bruno and Emily's case as an example again. If you are like very focused on Zoe CLI, you simply go to the setup section and expand like installing Zoe CLI section. And here you will first get an installation checklist. So this is a new content and topic that was introduced in the V2 release. And here it summarizes all the required steps for a base Zoe CLI installation, that is first time installation. And it will tell you what sequence you should follow and all the steps that you need to perform in order to install Zoe CLI successfully in your environment. And what's more, we also provide this detailed table where we are listing all the user roles who will be responsible for performing a certain step, as well as a time estimate here to help you determine how much time it will need. So hopefully this will give our Zoe CLI users a better idea before they like dive deeper into the installation here. And you can also print it out if you want, and just to guide you through your journey of installing Zoe. So this is just an example. We have many similar content for other components as well. Like if you want to explore and use the Zowe ZOS components, leverage Zowe Desktop and things like that, this would be the like place that you want to take a look. We also provide similar content like installation roadmap, which will tell you the high-level stages or steps that you need to perform in order to complete the installation. And we also have like provide the detailed steps to help tell you what steps are required to have a successful installation, things like that. So if you have installed Zowe successfully, most probably you will want to start using all its features and get all the benefits from Zowe. And the use section will be the section that you are going to be interested in. We also design that according to the components that you might be interested. So for example, Zowe CLI and Zowe Desktop, APML, you can get all the information in order to start using different or the various features that the Zowe components have. So for example, using Zowe CLI, we talked about the daemon mode, right? And there are lots many great content here that you can explore, like how to configure the daemon mode, how to use that, how to configure team profiles. So all the information that you need in order to explore these components can be found in this use section. And similarly for extending, if you are looking to develop your own extensions or onboarding an API from your enterprise, so you can find all the corresponding or relevant information in this section about extending. And here, this topic will provide you an overview with all the extension points, and then you can dive deeper into the component that you are focusing on, like API and mediation layer. We have also provided very detailed documentation, step-by-step instructions about how to onboard like REST APIs using different methods. And all the new features and enhancements were also introduced in a very detailed manner in this section as well. So I won't dive deeper into this and just want to show you some content that you can't miss. That is the reference section here. So if you are looking, if you are installing Zowe, for example, and you might encounter some commands that you are not familiar with, or some APIs that you want to learn more about. And in V2 documentation, we generated a lot more reference guides here. First of all, this one you must be very familiar with, that is the Zowe CLI command reference guide. You can browse this command reference guide in different formats, like browse it online, which will allow you to find all the commands that you might be using now. And you can also download those command reference guides in different formats based on your preference. And apart from that, I want to highlight this section, that is the ZWE server command reference, which will be very helpful if you are installing the Zowe ZOS or server-side components. As you know that ZWE command will help you or guide you through the installation process. And if you are not familiar, if you want to learn more about a certain command, you can take a look at this section and get very detailed instructions and description about the commands that you need to execute. So like parameters and a lot more information like errors which might be helpful for you to debug if you encounter some issues and things like that. And similarly, we also provide very detailed reference for configuration file, the Zowe YAML configuration file, which is also helpful if you are using it during your installation, configuration, and runtime. So as you can see, this is a very long table of contents, and where we are trying to consolidate all the useful information just for your reference. So whenever you have any questions, or if you want to refer to find any information that you want to dive deeper, just come to this reference guide section, and hopefully you will find everything that you need to know. And apart from all the reference guide enhancements in V2, we also did something to help you better troubleshoot the issues. like we added a lot more error codes and messages that you might encounter during installation and configuration. For example, if you go to the Zowe application framework section, now there's a new section named the ZSS error message codes, where you can find some like common error messages that you might encounter. So will be very helpful for you to do some self troubleshooting before you reach out to the community. And in a lot of cases, we found that many users could find some solution here. So very helpful for self troubleshooting here. Okay, so that's basically all the like enhancements and the many useful content that I want to introduce to you in this webinar today. And as always, the Zowe documentation squad is looking for feedback and also any advice and suggestions for us to better improve the Zowe content experience. So if you encounter any issues or have any questions, thoughts, or comments on Zowe documentation, just don't hesitate to reach out to the Zowe Doc squad. And you are also welcome to create issues for us. There's a link here, and also raise questions to us in Slack channel. Okay, so that's all for the Zowe Doc tour. Back to you, Rose.
All righty. Thanks, Ashley. Well done, as always.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to do a shout out that I don't know how many of you out there have kept up with Zowe over the years, but the Doc Squad has just always done a great job at organizing all this information. So, you know, Ashley represents really the whole team in pulling this content together. We recognize the importance of this documentation for those of you working to use Zowe. So great job, Ashley and team.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right. So we are interested in understanding where you all stand with respect to Zowe V2. And as such, we've created just a really short survey that we really appreciate if you took just a minute to take. You don't have to necessarily complete it now, but I'm going to ask May to please post the survey link in the chat. And if someone could just confirm that that's in there, it should be the same link that you're seeing on the presentation.
Yes, it is, Rose.
Okay, fantastic.
Thanks, May.
Copy that, please, and take a few minutes to complete that for us. It would be very helpful for us to understand where things stand with you, your company, and your intentions to install Zowe V2. And our dancing too is compliments of Joe Winchester. All right, let's move on and wrap up with some content that may be new or news to you. Zowe V2 LTS, as I mentioned, went GA back in April 27th. We also launched the final active release for Zowe V1 1.28, which I believe went out May 23rd. V1 has now transitioned into maintenance mode, and as such, there will be maintenance releases planned going forward. And then Zowe V 2.1 actually went out on June 13th. Also want to make you aware that we continue to post blogs, Zowe specific blogs at the Open Mainframe Project. We have a blog here that Bruce introduced related to Zowe Chat, a new incubator project that was recently accepted and kicked off and on its way to building out a new project within Zowe. And then, of course, the press release and the blog related to the V2 announcement. PI planning. So for those interested in the release, the upcoming planning that we do quarter over quarter, we have an upcoming meeting that we recommend you attend if you have the time. Our PI planning first day is currently scheduled for July 11th. I believe that's a Monday morning. If you can make the 8 to 9 and then possibly some of the 9 to 11, if you're interested in a particular component, please do go ahead and check that out. These links are included in the Zowe calendar, and I'll tell you how to get there in just a minute. If you're interested in seeing any of the system demos, we plan system demos after we put out every Zowe continuous release. So if you're interested in understanding what exactly went into a point release, for example, you can join the system demo that's planned after the release goes live. And those two are also can be found in the Zowe calendar. And the easiest way to get there is to just go to zowe.org, click on the community in the top bar of the landing page there. There are several tab-like sections on that landing page. Click on community, page down until you see the calendar, and it will look something like what we've copied in on this slide. And you can go ahead and find the dates for the planned system demos. Again, they're scheduled usually the first Monday after we go live with one of the releases. We just had one actually this week. And then of course you don't want to miss, if you're planning on attending any of the popular conferences that are up and coming. For example, SHARE is scheduled to be in Columbus, Ohio in August. We have a Zowe Day, a complete day dedicated to Zowe sessions planned on Monday, the 22nd of August. And we have topics ranging from an overview of Zowe, which will be more of a roadmap session, to deeper dives into business requirements such as DevOps and the role that Zowe would play in implementing DevOps throughout your organization. We have a session dedicated to deploying and configuring the security updates within Zowe. I believe that's going to be focused on Zowe V2. And then we reserve the last session to talk about how you or other vendors could extend Zowe, and we'll throw in some information related to the Zowe conformance program as well in that session. So if you're planning to be there, certainly please plan to join us on that Monday. Also, before we meet again, which we're planning for probably the end of September, there are a couple of other conferences that you may want to take a look at. There will be Zowe sessions there, although I don't know that we have information on what's been accepted at this time. But there is an open source summit in Europe on September 13 through 16 in Dublin, Ireland. And I believe that will be virtual as well, or at least parts of it will be. And then, of course, the Open Mainframe Summit sponsored by the Linux Foundation on September 21st and 22nd back in the US in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And some of that will be virtual as well, too. I believe that we will have several Zowe sessions there. So don't miss those. I'm always going to refer everyone back to zowe.org again. Go to zowe.org, page down. You'll see upcoming and recent events. So if you've missed an office hours, you're curious as to when the next office hours is, or you're just interested in looking at a replay of a more current event, you'll find it on that landing page along with links on how to get there. And of course, if you can't find what you're looking for, Emlyn and Bruno, I think, share this with you. Many of us are available on Slack, and I find it, I would find it surprising if you're not able to get an answer from anyone on Slack. We're always there. Someone is always there. That's the best part of being a global organization, right? Someone's always available on Slack. And then not last and not least, we do have a continual flow of educational materials that get refreshed at medium.com. We have a medium.com/Zowe page here where you'll find all kinds of information related to Zowe. Our most recent blog by Jakob Baller, our technical steering committee league, is dedicated to Zowe security and the process that we go through in the Zowe community to ensure that Zowe itself is secure. But we have others, plenty related to Zowe V2, others related to technology that we introduced with Zowe V2, such as the OSMF workflows for Zowe configuration. There are also dedicated articles on upgrading to the new team config, both for Zowe Explorer and Zowe CLI, as well as some of the more base product information associated with the framework, the mediation layer, et cetera. So don't miss those. And you're always welcome to join any of our weekly meetings. Those are also available on the Zowe calendar. Again, the best way to get there is to go to zowe.org and look at community page down. Certainly, if you haven't already joined the Slack community, go to openmainframeproject.slack.com and you'll find all the Zowe channels out there. Best channel to use if you're new to Zowe is either the Zowe onboarding channel or the Zowe user channel. And then I think that wraps it up for us today. If you're interested in attending the next webinar, the next quarterly update, we are planning to do another one around the September timeframe. I need to confirm this with May. This is tentative. We're looking at September 28th, so that will steer clear of those upcoming conferences. And certainly if you have a topic that you're interested in having us present, let us know through the Slack channels. In the meantime, I think what we're planning on is to do a focus on Zowe V2. And with that, unless there are any outstanding questions in chat, which I don't believe there are. Seeing anything, Bruce? I'm not.
Nope, I think we're
Oh,
good. I
okay.
just, again, wanted to say thanks to Bruno and Emlyn for joining and sharing their experiences.
Yes, thank you very much. No problem.
Right.
You're welcome.
Well, we'll have you back in a year and you can tell us
Yeah.
of the progress that you've made.
Okay, why not?
Right.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. And everybody out there, thanks for attending. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you.